Well, Jack Antonoff's my favorite producer on this album somehow.
Brunch. Hit it, boys.
We're recording and... surprise!
Oh, what's this?
I threw you a surprise Taylor Swift review.
Oh, wow. It's just what I wanted. I usually don't like surprises, but man, this one really hits the spot.
Backstory, I told Pete I wasn't doing this. Told Pete I'm not doing this Taylor Swift album. Don't have the bandwidth for it right now. And honestly, I didn't. I couldn't do it. People were weird to me about it. They were like, yo, just listen to the fucking Taylor Swift album. Tell me about it. What do you think? Just be part of the conversation. And I've thought through, we can get to it later, why I just didn't have the space for it and the want to participate in it. But I did tell you, I was like, yo, I'm for real not gonna, like, you can tell me about it, but I'm not gonna listen to this album. And you were devastated.
Yes.
Anything.
Like a little peek behind the scenes. We don't often get in like fights or disagreements or tiffs or whatever. Like,
we don't.
Very much what it is on this podcast. We kind of just vibe, and it's usually a lot of agreeing, and that's it, man.
Yeah.
But when so like you kind of like, you gave me like your whole spiel. You're like, I'm not doing it. I don't have the time for it and stuff. And you kind of like got real defensive about it. And I could tell that like a lot of people were hounding you to listen to this. And I felt like I wasn't one of them. I listened to it on the first listen, and I texted you and I was like, yo, you should listen to it. And I didn't say it was really good or anything. I was just like, yo, you should listen to it. And then you were like, yeah, at some point. And that was it. That was the end of that. And then like we had the discussion a little bit later, and you were like, everybody's got to stop freaking out, man.
So
leave me alone.
I do owe you an apology. I don't want to go back and like read the texts or anything, but I do know at some point you said something like, well, I just wish you would listen to it. Or like, It would mean a lot to me if you listened to it. And I didn't even think, just like maybe all caps was like, Jesus fucking Christ with the like,
that's what it was.
You're letting me down. Who like, honestly, I was cousin CJ throwing chairs. Who fucking cares? It's one album. We'll do it later. Just like,
and it wasn't even me like telling you to listen to it. It was me saying, hey, we should get somebody on that I can talk to about the album, because I really want to talk about it.
Oh yeah.
And you were like, Jesus fucking Christ, I'm just trying to avoid this whole, I don't want people to be talking about it. You're like,
no, I don't know. This is very weird. I guess we can get into why I didn't have the headspace for it. I don't know. Like, first of all, everybody's got their stresses, and this has been a very stressful time and a crazy time in the world. And the Taylor Swift album cycle for me is a lot of fun, but it's also a lot of work and a lot of not necessarily a lot of work, because like I do with anything I like, I'll listen to it 1,000 times and kind of make heads or tails of it. But there's a lot of stress that comes with it, because there are very
expected like what's your thought on it? Like, people expect you to give a take or whatever.
Not even that, because I don't think anyone cares what I have to say. But
I care.
You do, and like a few people do, and I very much appreciate that. But I'm gonna shout out you here. I'm gonna shout out Nora here. There are very few people with whom I can have like a real, hey, this is what I think of this Taylor Swift project conversation, because most people who are into Taylor Swift, I mean, she's the biggest star in the world. All they want to hear in their life is more Taylor Swift songs, more MOAR, meme spelling, more Swift. All they want is more Swift. So when new Taylor Swift music comes out, they are given stuff that is automatically beloved because they love Taylor Swift more than anything. And I am so happy for those people. I'm so happy that when all you care about is Taylor Swift and Taylor Swift music, that any Taylor Swift song you hear is going to make you really, really happy. that thrills me. Although I have been kind of reflecting on what we're really doing if we're in a time right now where we're reflecting on things like privilege and capitalism and this machine that kind of doesn't stop rolling no matter what. Then the country shuts down, and one of the more privileged people in the world is like, hey, I was able to make a studio album this whole time.
It's my time.
Right. So I don't know. I felt a little weird about all that, and I wasn't able to totally, I didn't want to process what I was thinking or why. So I was like, okay, like I do with anything when I can't really deal, I'm just saying no. I'm just putting up a wall and saying no. So I'd already said to a few people, like, we'll talk about it when I get to it. Or like, hey, this is your time. Like if you want this album, it's your time. I just felt very weird and very overwhelmed, and I probably sound like an overwhelmed idiot right now. I talked to Randy. Like Randy was like, "Yo, dude, like, what's your problem? Like, I don't know, like what this is. Like, fucking get over it." And so I tried not to hound you too much about it, just because like I know you go through like these like mental health things, and we just had a conversation last week where it's like, hey, let's try to be more understanding about like what people are going through. And like if you're just not in the right headspace to listen to something, or you don't want to subject yourself or be exhausted by something, I'm not gonna fucking like hound you and force you to do it. But I did really want to talk about it because like I mean we'll get to it, but like this album is like really great for me, and I just wanted to talk about it. I was excited about it, and like to have a podcast where that surrounds pop culture, and like Taylor Swift's been like a big part of this podcast. So I just didn't want to like have something that was really good from somebody that I like and that we like, and then just ignore it. So that was the biggest thing for me. I agree with that. Like, I think that we're better at, I think that our like Taylor Swift coverage is the best in the business. So
for sure.
When you brought that up, when we were having the little spat, you were like, it's just fucking weird if Taylor Swift drops an album and we just ignore it.
Right. Especially if it's really good. Like if it's,
and I knew that
like,
too,
if it's another Lover, I would have been fine just being like, yeah, listen to Taylor Swift. It was fine. If it was like something that we totally expected from Taylor Swift, or just something that was fine, I wouldn't have been so dug in on like really wanting to talk about it. But since it is something very different and something that I really like and I'm passionate about, I want to be able to talk about it.
Okay, so then I guess we'll just jump in because you've already said a few things that have maybe sent up flares. Got my antennas going. On Sunday morning, I was driving for a little bit, and I was like, you know what? Like I had a great day Saturday, went out on a boat. It was like my best day in a long time. And the boat crew was aware of my Taylor Swift situation. Although I did give the blessing. I said, absolutely. I said, put it on, put whatever. Like I'm talking, I'm having a good time. I'm not going to be doing my psychotic, listen very carefully, take a million mental notes thing anyway. But boat was still very respectful. They'd only put on one song, and I was like, this song was fine background noise.
Which one was it?
This might trigger you. Mm-hmm. August.
Yeah, doesn't.
I was like, this is background noise, but whatever. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm hearing it wrong. I wasn't paying attention to it. But then the next day, after I'd like spoken to, I'm the weirdest person in the world. Like, I'd like had like borderline heart to hearts with people over like, I just can't do a Taylor Swift album right now. But Sunday I was driving and it was just like very quiet and I had nothing going on. And like I had plans, but they weren't for a little while. And I was like, I hadn't had any coffee. Like my brain was just completely empty. And I was like, you know what? I know your idea of, because I'd said I'm going to, I'm not going to listen to it. I'm not going to tell anybody I listened to it. And then one day be by myself. I'm just going to listen to it. And maybe I'll tell a couple friends, but I'm just not going to tell anyone I listen to it. And I'll have sat out this whole Taylor Swift experience, and everybody will have had so much fun without me. And that, God, if that isn't my fucking dream. And then Sunday morning, which was like 2 hours after the album came out, I was like, enough time has passed.
I feel like that's when people are like, I'm going to take a break from Twitter. And then like 8 hours later, they're firing off memes.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. So I listened to it, and I've slowly done like, I've done like a slow rollout of, I've listened to this album and I've taken all my notes and everything. I purposely left you out of it because I thought it'd be funny to just throw like a surprise review. I
appreciate that.
I did text you though. I made sure, like, I was like, hey, be ready to tell me about it, because I didn't want to be like, okay, let's talk about the Taylor Swift album. And then you'd be like, oh, well, shit, I've just listened to like 6 times and I think it's okay. And then like, there's nothing to do. But I did, I've taken my copious notes. I've shared thoughts with a couple of friends.
I mean, trust me. Like when you were like, I'm not going to talk about it, I'm not going to listen to it, but we can talk about it on the podcast. Like that was the worst fucking thing that you ever could have said to me, because me trying to carry a music conversation with you and like being the person who drives that is just sounds like the worst thing in the world to me. Music is not my specialty.
It was so funny. And then this was when I knew I was being mean. You were like, okay, well then can we have Nora on the podcast? And I didn't. Do you know what I said? You know what my text back was?
I don't remember.
No.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I was, I took my Taylor Swift weirdness out on you, because a lot of the conversations just went like, so you're not going to listen to it? No. Well, that's fucking weird, man. You should. Whatever reason you don't want to, just fucking get over it, man. It's Taylor Swift, most popular, blah, blah, blah. And then I would just kind of like end that conversation. Yeah, and you were the first person that like tried to have a conversation with me.
I felt like you had a tough day at work and you came home and you were like, fuck this.
Right. Like
took it out on me.
Yeah. So apologies. I have listened, and I've listened several times. I've taken copious notes. And so you said you really like the album.
I do.
I think that there is a really good album in there, and that it's very occasionally half-baked. A lot of the songs are losable. I think that 16 songs was way too long for this project. I think that it sounds like something that was released 3 months after they started making it. But it has, while not having the highest of highs, it doesn't have the lowest of lows. I think that this is an album that, if better organized, meaning if it lost like 7 of the songs, would be a great album. I don't think that I feel like I'm being very negative, but I have a lot of positive things to say about this album. I don't think that just because it's more folky, that it's more sophisticated. Like a lot of the songs on this album are worse than her crazy, like weird, ambitious shit on Reputation. But I think that because they're not as jarring, it's easy to take them as, oh, well, it's by a popular artist and it doesn't really ruffle any feathers, therefore it's good. But I think like a lot of the songs on this album are boring, but a lot of the songs on it are great. I did do I don't know if we want to get to it now or what, but I did do a exercise where like, these are the songs I would get rid of, and this is the album that I would make, and then this would be a great album. Because right now, I asked you to have prepared where you would rank this among Red and On, and I think that this is the worst of Red, 1989, Reputation, Lover. But what I'm realizing I did is I kind of like queer-eyed the album, I think, which is like, hey, let's just put a little more time. Let's do a little work. Let's get rid of these things. As Tan would say, Tan always, whenever he's being mean, Tan says, let's just go with something more appropriate.
Yeah.
Appropriate is like the nicest way of like Tan to say like you dress like shit. But I think there's a really good album in here, but there's a lot of filler on it, which is not something I want from my pop stars.
So I don't look at this as like a pop star album. I think that's like a really good starting point where it's like Taylor Swift, I'm not putting her in that box. Like, obviously, I appreciate the bangers as much as anybody. I love stupid pop songs. Like Carly Rae Jepsen is my fucking favorite. So like when Taylor Swift makes a stupid pop song, I'm completely there for that. But I feel like this is its own sort of thing. And for me, it hits a lot of the right boxes, I guess. Like, I do agree with you that a lot of these songs are kind of boring, but they're boring in like a way that appeals to me.
Yeah, it's like a pleasing background noise. Yeah,
and but I also think that it's very well written in terms of like the lyrics and what I typically expect from Taylor Swift songs. And I also think that this is her most cohesive and like I would say like consistent album front to back, and it's probably the easiest one to listen to front to back without skips.
I would say I think like cohesive in that like all the songs are similar sound. Like this is more of like, for lack of a better term, like this is like a folk album, but it's also kind of like Father John Misty album where it's like rooted in folk rock. In this case, it's like folk pop, but it's rooted in folk pop. But then there are songs like This Is Me Trying or Mirror Ball that are a little more like vibey. And like Father John Misty does stuff like that. I've actually, right before we started this, one of my favorite songs on the album is This Is Me Trying, Jennifer. And when I first heard it, I was like, this sounds like a song where I'll read like a Pitchfork headline, like that'll say like the story of how Father John Misty wrote a song for Taylor Swift. Like this sound, that kind of sounds like a song that Josh Tillman would write for a pop artist. But I don't know. I like This Is Me Trying a lot. I can't tell if I want to unveil the shorter version of Folklore, aka Shortlore, aka FIXLORE, or if I want to compare our favorite songs on the album.
Yeah, let's not get into it. I don't want you to do like the full reveal yet.
Okay, what are your favorite songs on the album?
I really like the one Exile, just Bon Iver, just hits all the right spots. I like My Tears Ricochet a lot, Mirror Ball. I do like This Is Me Trying. Mad Woman has like a lot of initial appeal, but I don't think that there's like a ton of replayability for me, I guess. And then like Betty, I really liked as well.
Betty's good. So it's interesting. I thought that Betty would be everyone's favorite. Like all the Taylor Swift.
I've heard a lot of people say
favorite.
That it's very much like a classic Taylor Swift song.
It's probably a Speak Now song.
Right. It's like the most classic Taylor Swift song on this album, I think.
Right. I agree. It's a Speak Now song. So a lot of the songs that you named right off the top are ones that I would not have put on the album.
Really?
I would have left The One off. I would have left Exile off. I would have left My Tears Ricochet off. And the one I just think is like a cheap song that is like, it's easy and it's breezy, and I think that it's
I agree with all that, but I like it.
But I think though, like, and this is like me taking Taylor Swift too seriously, The One strikes me as Taylor Swift acquiescing to people who don't like the shock value of like Taylor Swift lead singles. And I know this isn't the lead single of the album, but it is the first track on the album. I think that like this album is not going to shock anybody. Nobody's going to be, other than its release, nobody's going to be like, what the hell is Look What You Made Me Do? No one's going to do that with any of the songs on this album. And The One is it strikes me as such a like, well, here is your easy, nothing good about it, nothing bad about it, kind of just there with like a tinge of soul song. And it's just so stale to me. I mean, I don't love it, but a lot of people do like it.
I think that it's a really good song to sort of put you in that space to enjoy the rest of the album. Like, I think that it sets the tone for
like
the
if you
album.
like this bad song, then you'll probably like the better ones. I gotcha.
It's not a bad song. I think that it's like a introductory song to the rest of the album. And that's a good thing for a first track.
I would also lose Exile, which kills me, but
I think that's a ridiculous take. Exile is a great song.
I mean, it definitely isn't. I love the harmonies after the first chorus, and I love Bon Iver on the, like I love Bon Iver. I love Taylor Swift. I don't like Out of the Woods, and the bridge of that song is Out of the Woods. And that was a problem with a lot of songs on this album where like, I'm like, just spend a little more time on this. Like you're one of the most successful songwriters. Just spend a little more time and do things that aren't things that you've done before. Cardigan does that. Exile. I
don't like Cardigan.
Does that.
A lot of people like Cardigan. I was not a fan.
Cardigan breaks my heart because the verse sets you up for like, this is a cool song. She's making a statement. And then it gets to the chorus and you're like, oh, it's fucking, it's Wildest Dreams. What are you doing, dude? So Cardigan and August are the two that broke my heart the most. Although, while I would leave August off the album because it's just so repetitive, I enjoy it enough that I'm like, yo, it's fine. You could sneak this one on the album. What I don't like about August is she's so good at making a song that repeats the whole thing throughout and is awesome. That's very hard to do. Most times, if you make a song that has like the same chord progression the entire time, it's typically going to be boring. But if you're a bomb-ass songwriter like Taylor Swift or Max Martin, you can make We Are Never Getting Back Together, and it's the same thing throughout the whole song, but you're doing all these cool things throughout that the listener's never bored. August is like when that goes wrong. It just never goes anywhere for me. So those are some of the songs I would leave off. What else did you name? My Tears Ricochet, I think is okay. And again, it sounds like I'm just being completely negative about this album. There are songs on this album that I really love that we can talk about. But I
also like the Last Great American Dynasty. I think that song is very cool.
That's in the what I would categorize as like the real two, like the best two, the two where I'm like, yo, these songs are great Taylor Swift songs. Actually, Betty belongs in there, and probably Peace, but Last Great American Dynasty is my second favorite song on the album. It's just an example of really good songwriting from her, where not to be nerdy, but like it's sung low in her range. She doesn't really cover much of a range, but the song still kind of feels like it gets exciting and moves around because it's very simple. There are minor chords in the verse and there aren't minor chords in the chorus. So it's just a very well-written song, and I love the story of it. I love the lyrics. Right. I've spoken to people from Rhode Island who are not as psyched about that song.
Why?
Because it's her being like, yeah, I fucked everything up. Suck it.
Yeah, but I fucking love that, especially from Taylor Swift, where like I like that when she sort of Taylor like Swift humbles herself a little bit.
Taylor Swift has this thing of like, oh, you think I won't go there, but you know what? Yeah, I'll give a little fuck you. Like, yeah. Dude, like all you give are fuck yous, man.
But not explicitly.
That's true, right? So that's another thing. Like, I think that, and I've tried to hide from reviews of this album, but I know that overall it's been very well received. I just think it's like being like, hey, there are acoustic guitars and she swears. This means she's uncovering new ground. Like, fuck that. I don't think she's Swift. Uncovering She's new done ground, so much in her career. She wrote better songs like this on Red and Speak Now. Get out of here.
Maybe in like isolated spots, but again, I think that this as like a whole is, and maybe I'm just like a sucker for themed albums. Like I love 1989 because it had sort of like a very central sort of synth pop thing, and that was very appealing to me. And it had like that 80s sound. I loved that. this is obviously like folk rocky and just like the dad rock version of a Taylor Swift album. And I'm very here for that. And I thought that it was done really well in a way that can be consumed by, it's very palatable for a lot of people. And I think that that's impressive for Taylor Swift, especially, well, I guess.
No, it
I don't know,
isn't. It's
okay.
Taylor Swift.
So I knew that you were going to say that. So I get that. But I think that like for Taylor Swift to make an album that is liked by people who
that more old white people can like.
Yes. So that people who like really don't like Taylor Swift.
So
that's cool.
I don't think so. Like I
think it's cool.
Finally, old white people can have their moment. Like I agree with what you're saying that like old white people are going to like this more than other stuff, but
also like
that doesn't make it better, and it just means that you're appealing to, I don't know, a different segment of people that made you rich.
Yeah. Like they usually spent their money on their kids buying Taylor Swift albums. Now they can spend their own money to buy the Taylor Swift album. I do want to say on Exile, I am glad that she let Bon Iver sort of flex a little bit, because my biggest concern finding out that they collabed was that like he was barely going to be involved, because Taylor Swift doesn't do a lot of features, and he's the only feature on the album. And I do wonder if he's the only feature on the album because he's boys with Kanye. Like that thought did cross my mind.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that song.
People had been discussing that, like, did she suddenly release this album because Kanye was releasing an album the same week, supposedly, and did she just want to like tread on that? And so it makes me wonder, like, is Bon Iver the one feature on this album because he's boys with Kanye?
Yeah, that's just that song doesn't do it for me. So interestingly enough, and this is I've asked a lot of Taylor Swift fans as I've done my soft rollout, and the best song on this album does not get mentioned a lot with the old Swifties. You haven't said it yet.
Go for it. I don't know what it is. I'm going to disagree because I've named all the ones that I love.
Sure. Go. You got the track list somewhere. What do you... There's only like 3 or 4 songs we haven't named.
We haven't touched Epiphany. I don't think it's that.
Epiphany's a good song, though.
Invisible String.
Invisible String, good song. That's not it.
Illicit Affairs.
Oh my God, no.
Yeah, I was hoping not. 7?
7 is the best song on this album.
Really?
I love that song. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's great. And it's just like a very like beautiful, vulnerable song. I can ruin it for you right now and say, listen for the breaths, because it's a little challenging for her to sing. So after like every word, syllable, whatever, she takes a breath, and a lot of times a producer will edit that out, but they didn't, and I love that about it because it just makes it sound more like a performance. And I think it's a great song. I love the verse, I love the chorus, I love everything about that song. That's a great song, but one of only 2, I would say, that are like excellent songs. I think that and Last Great American Dynasty are the real 2 winners from this album. So this album doesn't have it has like boring songs that I don't think are worth being on an album. But
I don't think that a lot of songs from this album are going to end up on her like greatest hits.
No, and I am adamant about this. People are not going to be playing this album for years. And I think, and that's why like there's always going to be hyperbole when a Taylor Swift album comes out. So I think that, and if it initially strikes you as your favorite Taylor Swift album, God bless. But I don't think that this album is going to be played forever the way that really all of her other albums are. Like this album does not have like Mean. Like Mean is better than, I would say, 14 of the 16 songs on this album, and probably better than the 2 songs that I really like, you know?
Sure. But I also think that like, while it doesn't necessarily have the height and the peaks, in the ceiling that a lot of her other albums have. It also doesn't have the swings and misses.
Correct. It doesn't have like Call It What You Want. It doesn't have Gorgeous. It doesn't have a lot of like the really bad song. Like I don't think there's a bad song on this album. I think that there are extremely forgettable songs on this album.
I think that's fair, but like it's a song. There are songs that like you will remember when you listen through it and be like, okay, this isn't a bad song. I just kind of forgot about it. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Like, especially like this is a very even album. It's very like front to back. It's consistent and it's like easy listening. So like for me, I think that's impressive to do front to back. And like if you were to tier this album like we've done in the past, I think that would be a pretty boring exercise because all of the songs sort of fall in the like fine to very good.
Yes, I completely agree with that. So why do a 16 song album though? Why not make it a 9 to 10 song project where everything is good or very good? Or
but here's
I think there are a couple of like, I think that the last Great American Dynasty and 7, I think I would put in like the great category. But there's no like elite.
Here's the thing. Me and you have very different opinions on what would be considered very good and what we would keep. And from what I've seen in people giving their responses and their takes to this album, there are a lot of different favorite songs from people when it comes to this album.
And that speaks to your point of like, it's a lot of between C- and B+, you know, like there's no Fs. I wouldn't even say that there's like a D song. I think that, I don't know, maybe there's not even a C-. Maybe it's like all C and better, but it's like kind of a C of C. You know what I'm saying? SEA.
Yes,
C.
I get it. But I mean, I would give it a little bit more credit than that. Maybe I wouldn't say that it's a C of C's. There maybe is like one or two C's, but like I just think that like you're getting into sort of territory where like, well, I like this song, so we're gonna keep this one. But like, there are different songs that appeal to different people, of course, on this album, and since they are sort of like all sort of compact and close together, it's hard. People are going to disagree on which ones to take away. So like the fact that she kept it 16 songs, I don't think that's a bad thing.
And this is why like Taylor Swift is always in a position to succeed and always get richer and always just Taylor Swift's never going to lose, is that she's putting it out to people who only want to hear more Taylor Swift songs. So like, I think that if you come at it from hey, what kind of new songs does the biggest star on the planet have? You're going to say, all right, well, some of these are good. Some of these are not as good. Here's maybe my opinion of how it could be better, when the masses and the people who are buying and paying for it are saying every single one of these is the best. So the people who are saying every single one of these is the best, of course, their favorite is going to vary. No one's going to, the people, not quite like you, but I know some real Swifties. When they're picking their favorite song on the album, they're picking between a bunch of 10 out of 10s in their mind because they're so happy that they're hearing Taylor Swift, and Taylor Swift's voice is the best thing. So of course I'm going to disagree with them because I'm maybe looking at it a bit more
critically,
unbiased. Right. Mm-hmm. So of course, yeah, Taylor Swift make every album 300 songs, but yeah. I'm looking at it as, okay, what would actually make
you're
the
trying
best
to trim
album?
the fat. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it stinks because like, this is not my favorite Taylor Swift album by a long shot. And it's because there is, I think, a lot of fat on it, which could have been solved again, either spend more time on it, like, or
again, but I do think that like you can say that about any Taylor Swift album. We've agreed.
Done in 3 months though. Done in 3 months. Like that's not a badge of honor to me. And it's cool. Like everyone's done their quarantine projects here and there. Like, but you didn't have to put out a 16 song album in 3 months. You could, and it's impressive that you made 16 songs.
Well, Taylor Swift wasn't going to put out an EP. Let's be.
It wouldn't be an EP.
Here.
So okay, let me give you what.
No, it wouldn't be an. Yeah, no, okay, no, wait, hold on. But like, I understand where you're coming from, but I also think that like, I mean, she doesn't have. Maybe you could look at it in the sense of like she doesn't have ambitious swings and misses like on previous albums where she went for it, but it just didn't deliver. I don't think that there's anything here that is like so bad that you could be like, this has to be cut out, and it would make it a better album.
Correct. So then you're just terrible at editing. Then how do you write your stories? Then you never go back and say, hey, like this doesn't really serve a purpose. This doesn't need to be here.
Oh no, I'm not the most succinct writer at all.
Oh, okay. You're
talking to the wrong person here.
No, I think that if you don't have if this were like a 5-song project and she wanted to be like a 5-song thing and one of them isn't good, then like whatever, okay, you can have one not as good song. But a 16-song project, what you're describing as like complete, I interpret as more cloudy. And when it's hard when the songs range from like a C to a B plus, sure, you can say, well, there's not a huge difference between all these songs because they're all kind of in the same realm. But if you can identify what the C's are and make it all between B minus and B plus, then
we have different opinions on
you've admitted that some of the songs are boring or not as good as others.
Sure. But
so that's what I'm saying. It doesn't.
But we don't have a consensus agreement. So the different songs mean different things to different people.
Of course. So so then you are saying your point is then that every album should have as many songs as possible because there's a chance that that's going to be someone's favorite song, which I do respect. Like the songs should be bonus tracks. They should see the light of day in some way, shape, or form. But if you're going for and again, Taylor Swift is treated as every song she comes out with is the best. And she's kind of given this Beatles, Michael Jackson affection from people who bury their heads in the sand and don't want to hear anything else. Like,
I mean, if you want to say that there should be a number of bonus tracks on this album, which she's done in the past, and like I have less of a problem with that.
That is what I'm saying. That's all. Okay, that's all I've been saying.
I just took it as like, hey, these songs should have never seen the light of day.
No, and I'm saying none of these songs are. I'm saying none of these songs are bad. I think that the ones that I would make bonus tracks could have maybe used a little more work. And I'm holding Taylor Swift to the standard of this is the biggest star in the world. If this is a throwaway artist that it's like their second album and they're just trying new things, then who the hell are we to judge?
And
I am
we
looking
have
at
seen
Taylor Swift as this major success who is a great songwriter, has written some of the biggest songs out there, and I think that some of it is substandard to the extremely high bar that she has set.
And to be fair, we've seen Taylor Swift put out some heavy bangers in the bonus track section.
That's true. Shout out
1989.
Yeah, New Romantics.
Oh, God. Fuck yeah, that song rules.
That's like some borderline Carly Rae Jepsen stuff, though.
It's like you,
here's a little extra.
Like what are you doing? Yeah.
This is a single. You're lying.
You're right.
You just
wanted credit to be like, wow, a bonus track fucking slaps. It's like it shouldn't have been a bonus track.
And this is why I'm winning this argument.
Haim did that too. Haim did that too.
If Taylor Swift can make her albums one song shorter so she can put out a whopper of a bonus track, why can't she make a 16-song album with some forgettable songs just like a 10-song album? That's all. And again, I've been listening. I've made FIXLORE, SHORTLORE. People are calling a lot of different things. I've made that playlist, and I've been listening to it a lot. And that is a great album. I think that Folklore itself is not great, but if you trim the fat, then yes, you got a great album.
I mean, you know that I love resequencing albums and that practice. So I'm very excited to hear what your Folklore would be. But first, before we get to that, we've got to read. Sports keep coming back. And so does your chance to bet on them with our exclusive wagering partner, betonline.ag. Major League Baseball is back, and you never know how long it may be around, so you might want to start betting on it while you can. There's the NHL coming back. There's the NBA coming back. So, again, no shortage of action. To get in on the action, BetOnline has all the odds, the futures, and the props that you need to bet on. As sports start to return, BetOnline has sat down with Eddie George from the NFL, Robert Horry, the 7-time NBA champ, and Harold Reynolds from Major League Baseball to get their opinions on what it will be like playing without fans and what they call the fandemic. I don't know if I like that, but visit betonline.ag today to check out all the odds and up-to-date sports news. Don't forget to sign up and take advantage of all the welcome back sports bonuses. BetOnline, your online wagering experts at betonline.ag.
Okay.
All right.
Two things. I did not resequence it. I just kept it in the order it was in.
Okay.
And the other, as I'm saying these, hear the titles capitalized. Okay?
Yeah.
That's
annoying.
Come on.
Yeah.
This is where maybe we're being a little petty, but
no, but I didn't need that. It's
how focus grouped is that?
Yeah,
oh my God.
Yeah. That's pretty cringy.
Yes. Oh, and also I'm going to keep putting off the unveiling of SHORTLORE, FIXLORE. The folks have a lot of different names for it. I was talking to Nora about this. There are still, just because Taylor didn't make ready for it, doesn't mean, or because she didn't make This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things, which again, those are both songs that are better than a lot of the songs on this album, doesn't mean she didn't do her kind of Taylor Swift cringe stuff, which made me happy. If I want some kind of goofy, awkward weirdness out of Taylor Swift, some of it's probably very manufactured, but that's kind of a staple of hers, that she'll have some oh, yikes, that's a little dorky moment.
You don't want to totally forget that it's Taylor Swift.
Right. So while it does not have the cackling of This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things, or We Are So Never Getting Back Together. Who's Taylor Swift anyway? She doesn't have any of those things. But
the old Taylor can't come to the phone right now.
But she does have. Oh yeah, that's one of my favorites. She does that with her lyrics on this album. I'm on some new shit. God,
I liked that. I liked it. There's a lot of. There definitely seems to be a lot of lyrics in this album that were damn, this is going to be a fire Instagram caption. She knew that it was what she was doing there.
Which again, that's kind of why I'm aren't we kind of reassessing what we're buying and what we're supporting and all this? And then here comes I don't want to, I don't know. I don't want to sound mean, but this is there is nothing more corporate than Taylor Swift. So I don't know.
And the part of that makes me wonder, if the story behind I wrote this all in isolation and now I'm just suddenly deciding to drop it. I don't know if I buy that, because everything that Taylor Swift does is so thought out and so planned. There's no chance that a couple weeks before release, Taylor Swift was yo, let's just put this out in a couple weeks. There's just no way in my mind that happened. Yeah.
So here's the album that I really like. It would go, and again, it's not in order. You can sequence it however you want, but The Last Great American Dynasty, Mirror Ball, 7, This Is Me Trying, Jennifer, Invisible String, Mad Woman, Epiphany, Betty, Peace, Hoax, and then the bonus tracks are The One, Cardigan, Exile, My Tears Ricochet, August, and Illicit Affairs. That is a much, much stronger album.
Epiphany does nothing for me.
I like Epiphany.
All right. I mean, I respect your opinion, and I'm glad that we were able to have this conversation to begin with.
But it's
you'll have to send it to me, and I'll have to kind of go through it. But I can tell you already that I'm probably not going to agree because the songs that you have listed as bonus tracks are some of my favorites.
That's okay.
Yeah.
And I don't want to sound like condescending or anything, but like
I know you're a better musical mind than I am.
But Taylor Swift has so many good, like really smart, thoughtful songs. So songs that are very well received on this album, like The One, are just like kind of, it's like a McDonald's cheeseburger. So I mean,
delicious.
Right. Those are great, but I don't know. Like, I don't understand, and this kind of frustrates me. Like, is 7 that complex that like a lot of fans would rather like a kind of dull, generic thing they've heard a million times, that they would like that better than I think what is a thoughtful, like earnest song like 7? That's what bums me out. I think that Taylor Swift fans want Taylor Swift seemingly to make the kind of like low-hanging fruit instead of really good music, which Taylor Swift is clearly capable of doing. That bums me out.
I mean, this isn't what I want from Taylor Swift every time Taylor Swift puts out an album. Don't get me wrong there. Like, if she were to do this for the rest of her career, I'd be like, damn, this kind of sucks. Like, I want the bangers. I want the range. But I do think that like this as a themed album works really well. My biggest complaint about this album as a whole is that it came out in the middle of summer, and it just doesn't seem like it's a summer album.
My biggest complaint, nice ass kissing tweet, by the way.
What do you mean?
To Taylor Swift.
Oh, I mean, I didn't tag her. I wasn't trying to kiss her ass. That was my thoughts on the album.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I didn't tag her.
Okay, I give you credit then.
Yeah, she searches her name apparently.
Oh, definitely. I was thinking of that. I'm like, should I write like a thoughtful review and be like, I have so much respect for Taylor Swift's music. Here's why I think like there's an excellent album in here. But that's not getting liked by Taylor Swift.
Yeah. No.
That's kind of the Taylor Swift problem.
People were like well, wow, congrats on having Taylor Swift's social media manager like your tweet. And I was like, I'm almost certain that Taylor Swift doesn't have a social media manager.
Really?
Or at least somebody who like logs into her Twitter and like composes tweets for her.
No, not that, but I think that probably finding the positive things and shit, that's possible.
Oh yeah, like for sure, like a brand manager type deal. But like,
I sends her the tweets.
Yeah, I don't think that anybody is running Taylor Swift's Twitter for her.
I would agree with that.
I think she just has too much control over everything.
We've gotten this far without talking about probably the most upsetting thing about the album, which is
produced by the National. Basically.
Oh my god!
Did I guess right there?
Yes.
Okay. I was going to ask you if this changes your opinion of the National at all, and it doesn't sound like it does.
Oh my god! No, it doesn't. Like, hey, I made a folk album, and I decided to make it with the most boring person in indie rock.
But that's what created the connection for her and Bon Iver, so I'm grateful for that.
Really?
Because Aaron Dessner is good friends with Justin Vernon. They do what is it? Big Red Machine.
Oh, okay, yeah,
yeah. Them too. That's Big Red Machine is them too.
Who do you think did better? I'm coming up with this on the fly. Who do you think did a better job on this album? Aaron Dessner or Jack Antonoff?
So I haven't looked at like how the production breaks down. I haven't looked into that at all. Most of the
I would say the first quarter of the album is all written, I think, by Dessner. The One is Dessner. Cardigan, Dessner, Last Great American Dynasty, Dessner, Exile, Swift, Justin, and the mysterious William Bowery. Have
you heard the theories?
Yep, it's Father John Misty.
Yeah, I wish.
My tiers: Ricochet, just Swift, Mirrorball, Swift and Antonov, Seven, Swift and Dessner, August, Swift and Antonov. This Is Me Trying, Swift and Antonov, Illicit Affairs, Swift and Antonov, Invisible String, Swift and Dessner, Mad Woman, Swift and Dessner, Epiphany, Swift and Dessner, Betty, Swift and Tillman, Peace, Swift and Dessner, Hoax, Swift and Dessner. I would say, honestly, not a bad showing from old Jack this time around.
Yeah, not really. I think that's a nice little split there for me.
Mirrorball and This Is Me Trying, those are good songs.
Mirrorball is a really good song.
Mirrorball, I think, is just like the listener is so bored at that point in the album that not necessarily bored, but like unstimulated, that like Mirrorball being slightly vibey, like
it is
like
an injection,
a defibrillator. Yes.
It is an injection for sure.
Yeah,
but I mean, good for Jack.
Yeah, good for. I mean, I knew before it came out. I was like, well, Jack Antonoff's my favorite producer on this album somehow.
I was gonna be like, I can't believe we had it into an album where Jack Antonoff was not your most hated producer on it off the bat.
Thanks again, 2020. God.
Oh,
that's
God.
So weird. I don't know. I think I've heard. I could be wrong. I've heard that like Aaron Dessner is like a really cool, funny guy. I could be wrong, or maybe that's Matt.
I don't think that it's Matt. If I had to guess, Matt doesn't seem like a funny guy.
What are the theories on William Bowery?
That it's I forget his name.
They say it's her boyfriend, right?
Yeah, or possibly her husband.
Ooh,
there's some rumors that there was a secret wedding. I forget his name. Joe Alwyn, I think.
So that's where like I'm definitely less biased than most when reacting to a Taylor Swift album, because I'm not her biggest fan and I'm certainly not a hater of Taylor Swift. Mm-hmm. I think that most people reacting to a Taylor Swift album are her biggest fan, so they're biased. But when you say there's a secret wedding and blah, blah, that's where I'll just be like, I don't care.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I
don't particularly care either.
That's where I like what are we doing? We're spending every second on these. Like, I don't know.
I mean, a lot of people treat Taylor Swift like it's like Breaking Bad, where they're like, I gotta find the clues, I gotta find the Easter eggs, I need to see the foreshadowing. They like, there's subreddits to figure out every aspect of her life, and I just don't have like any interest in that. But I did
that's not fair to her, and it's just such a weird thing. Like,
to
why
be
are
that
you
obsessed with somebody? Yeah, but I also think that she, like, it's to a certain extent, she doesn't help her cause too by like doing all the things that she does to hide Easter eggs and to foreshadow and all that. Like, she does those things, and so it encourages people to sort of look really, really deep and to try to find the next hint as to what she's going to do next, you know?
Yeah.
But the theory is that like Joe Alwyn is William Bowery because like his grandfather's name was William and they met at the Bowery Hotel. That was when like their first meeting happened or whatever. So that's what the theory is.
Okay, well, all right. How many years now? She's now pulled the Beatles and put out 2 albums pretty quickly back to back. It was supposed to be. Didn't we say after Lover that we needed there to be an Olympics?
That was before Lover.
Okay,
that was before Lover when she was putting out the singles that we didn't like.
Okay,
and we weren't fascinated by or anything like that. We were like, oh man, she's got to take some time off. Then she put out Lover, and I think
I like Lover.
It was okay, I thought.
Yeah, I think Lover's better than this album.
I disagree. It's for sure more disjointed, and
Yeah, but again, dude, I can I got a guitar right over there. I can play you the same 5 chords for an hour. And is that going to be, if Taylor Swift is singing as I do it, are you going to say, okay, this is a good cohesive thing? Because I think that I would probably say maybe Taylor Swift can do better than that.
I see your point, but
yeah, no, dude, I
like it.
Yeah.
Like I said, it checks a lot of boxes for me, and I think that front to back, it is an enjoyable experience.
Well, if you think that's an enjoyable experience, why don't you take SHORTLORE for a spin? That'll, you know what? What's the wrestling meme where the guy he's kind of intrigued by something, then as he progressively is like, wow,
man, yeah.
But that guy,
yeah,
that's like folklore. They're like, SHORTLORE, FIXLORE.
So how would you rank from Red On?
I don't know, actually. I've always
this is
said,
your idea.
I know. I just wanted to know where you placed it. I want to know, I just want basically a yes or no. Do you agree that this is the worst of that group?
No,
and
I don't.
I don't know. Off the top of my head, I would probably go Red 1989. Maybe chronologically, Red 1989, Reputation, Lover, and Folklore. I'm more of a Reputation guy than I think most are. I mean, Reputation has some bad songs.
Reputation for sure has some bad songs. It's an album that definitely grew on me, especially after seeing it on the Reputation tour. That was just a really good time.
That was the best, yeah.
And I don't know. For me, I feel like I'm always going to put 1989 at the top, just because it is so what I personally look for in pop songs. I love
Max Martin.
Yeah, I love Max Martin. I love the
something about
pop.
Swedish people, man. I just that's what you're saying. You like when Swedish.
Yeah, I think it would be 1989, Folklore, Red, Reputation, and Lover.
Okay, sweet. How long are we doing before a new Taylor Swift album? Because now you've been pleasantly surprised by what she can do in a short amount of time.
Sure, but like I said, I don't want this every time from Taylor Swift. So
right.
I'm treating this as basically a standalone project, and I don't expect it to be the norm.
So it sounds like you're talking about it like it sounds like you're talking about it as though it's an EP, even though it's her longest album.
Maybe I'll consider it a side project.
Yeah,
it's a Taylor Swift side project, and I really like it.
So do you want her to? If you find out Aaron Dessner is producing her next album, how do you feel about it?
I probably won't be thrilled.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting, and I think that because I like this album. I don't think I have not said that there's a bad song on it. I have not said that this is a bad album, but yeah, I mean I like this album, but I think I'm also in agreement. Don't do it again. Don't do it anymore. All done.
I don't become this.
Yeah.
I think it's cool that she did it, but I don't want it to be what I expect from Taylor Swift.
I've said this already on this episode, but I am kind of annoyed. And I knew this logic would be there that she finally made her, she finally did the folk pop thing, and she did man, where have you been? She's done this before.
She's done
and
this,
better.
Yeah.
Better.
So,
she has done this better than she did on this album.
So I don't necessarily disagree with you, but it's mixed into a normal album where it's kind of it's jarring and it doesn't fit in, and it's just her albums are all over the place. This one I give credit for sticking to a theme. Again, I'm a fucking sucker for a themed album.
I don't know if that's I guess Taylor Swift's albums are kind of okay, it's going to be one ballad. There's going to be this many dance numbers. There's going to be this and that. But I don't know if
she tries to give
a specific
for
genre.
Everybody.
It's more set in one genre. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, not my favorite. Not bad. Not great. I think that if you turn into to FIXLORE, SHORTLORE, BESTLORE, what do they call like the secret menu at McDonald's? I'm making so many McDonald's references. I must be hungry. What do they say? Like, oh, you can get the super whatever burger where like you turn 5. It's a secret thing you can order.
I don't know. I know that there's the In-N-Out. There's like the wild style or whatever.
Wild lore, yeah. Just any sort of like the kind of cool lore, brunch lore, whatever you want to call it. There folks are calling it a lot of different names. But now I don't know. Now I've talked about it. I do have all my thoughts in writing. Maybe I'll post on the blog. Although I feel kind of weird. This is stupid. I feel like weird being critical of something, which is so strange. Like because I don't want to be. I hope that I haven't sounded mean to Taylor Swift. If anything, I hope I've come off as respecting and taking Taylor Swift very seriously.
I mean, generally, we like Taylor Swift. We like to give Taylor Swift the benefit of the doubt where we can, and we don't like to yuck people's yums.
Right. Like, this is not me hating, but I do think that like Taylor Swift has this kind of world, the liking the tweets world, where I would think, and I do have all this written down. If I post it on the blog, I think that if Taylor Swift read it, I think she would take it as like, fuck this guy, and then she would go write mean part 2. And I think that A, that stinks because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And B, I think that if somebody's honestly critical of you, I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. But again, like,
especially when you're an artist, like you put yourself in that space where you are putting your art out there and you are subjecting it to be critiqued. This is like other people's jobs.
Right. Also, this is a bigger conversation though. Like if I'm always kind of the mind, like assume the person's in like the worst space they've ever been. Mm-hmm. Like if I'm having a real hard time with something and then somebody writes like, hey, was watching TV and I like these things that DJ Bean does, but I think that these things could be better. Maybe that's going to make me really sad.
Yeah.
So,
and also maybe it's a different situation when you're critiquing a song like Shake It Off, where it's like very
jarring
and very poppy and very sort of like just in your face, where this is sort of more of a, like, I'm going to pour my heart out in like a, maybe a more sensitive way.
So that's that's maybe another problem I have. Like, I don't always get that from these songs. I think that like, because they're acoustic guitars, you can kind of take it that way. Like 7, no pun intended, like took my breath away. And I didn't get that on a lot of the other songs on the album. Let's end with this because you brought up Shake It Off. I was talking about Taylor Swift with some friends recently, and one of my friends just like won't hear anything else. And I kind of agree with him. He's like, no, he's like, Shake It Off is a great pop record. Like that is, and I think that Shake It Off is an incredible accomplishment because musically it is like, there is just nothing to it, but it's just dressed so well. And I think that that's so cool. I say this, like, people find it crazy. One of my very favorite concert experiences was Shake It Off at the 1989 tour. Like the whole place going nuts, all the wristbands lighting up and everything. And it's just this silly little song that's so infectious and so great. So last night on a text thread, this friend brought up Shake It Off again. And I was like, dude, if there were a which Taylor Swift song do you defend Instagram filter, you would get Shake It Off and then like smile, and then that would be the end of the Instagram story. What would you hope for in the Taylor Swift? They have to be hits.
Like which one would I defend?
Like which Taylor Swift song that maybe someone would say like, well, this is and honestly, you could say that about most Taylor Swift songs. Like people could say, We Are Never Getting Back Together is corny. You could say a lot of things. I disagree with these things, but like there are criticisms you could, of course, make about any Taylor Swift hit. But I think I would say like Shake It Off and Look What You Made Me Do are probably the two most lambasted.
Yeah.
I would say that mine would be Look What You Made Me Do.
I think that
Look
would
What
be,
You Made Me Do defender.
Yeah, that would definitely be up there for me. Like I was for sure critical of it when I first heard it. I thought that it was just a mess.
What the hell is this?
Yeah, and I've since come around on it, and I think that it makes more sense in the context of that album, and that makes it a little bit easier to swallow. I don't know if I'm talking to you, like I have to defend Cruel Summer because you think that Cruel Summer isn't a very good song, and I think that it was the best song on Lover. And I don't know, Ready For It might be up there too.
I like Ready. Yeah, Ready For It is like not an amazing song, but like I like it a lot.
It's a party, dude. It's a party.
Yeah.
And I don't know. How do people feel about Mean? Because I know that like early,
Mean?
Yeah.
You know that Mean is like top 3 Swift for Dave. Or like probably top 5. It's not the best song, but like I just love that song so much.
Yeah.
I actually do think it is like a very well written song.
But I also think that it's not necessarily the most well received song, especially from people who like want to be critical of Taylor Swift, just because it is very dumb. Like
right.
It sounds so dumb.
Yeah.
And it's like immature, but like that song is great. I'll defend that song.
Same. Yeah, Mean is very high for me. I got in a conversation yesterday of saying like, in the conversation about like the lack of bad songs on this album, Nora was saying like, you might like Lover more than this album, but this album does not have Me, you know, and like Me is terrible.
Bad. So bad.
Me is like, you hear it and you're like, oh, I get it. In a couple days, it's going to make sense to me. And it's, oh, I see what you're doing. Taylor.
Never happens.
The brunch theory. We know what you're doing. And then like a week later, you're like,
why did that happen? That song. If there's a Taylor Swift song that I could never defend, it would be that one.
I agree. I think it's Me. But I like Folklore. I'm glad I eventually listened to it. I
am too.
I'm glad we've talked about it. I can put it on the blog if people want. I was like, maybe I'll only do it for like Patreon people because again, for whatever reason, there's like this weird Taylor Swift thing that exists where, and I don't think it's good. I don't think that's positive to like that. Anybody
that like you can't write about it because she might see it.
That like you can shit on people, but nobody can shit on you type of thing, you know?
Yeah.
So, I don't want it to be interpreted as being negative about Taylor Swift. Actually, you remember this. We were doing an episode. We talked about her Tiny Desk concert and how it wasn't our favorite. And you just made one of like the parts of the description, like shitting on Taylor Swift's Tiny Desk concert. And I was like, hey, that's not what we were doing. And you're like, yeah, I suppose we weren't. I was like, we were just saying that we didn't like it. Like we were not saying screw Taylor Swift, you know? And that's that. Hope everybody enjoyed the album. And if not, I'll remind you, she's got better albums you can listen to. So thank you. God bless. Stay safe, everybody.
Thank you for the surprise party.